So in this video, we will continue our discussions on methods and we will just cover few more cases. So earlier we saw that let's say if we have this multiply method which is accepting two arguments or print sum which also accepting two arguments. So we passed static values, constant values, these methods 3 and 5 and 3 and 4 in this case. But that's not going to be the case always because we may not have the constant value available. Maybe we have to perform some computation before we can actually invoke a certain method. So for example, if we have to call the print sum method, so let's call the print sum method, then maybe we, depending on the situation, maybe we need to call or maybe we need to perform some logic to get the arguments. So let's say I say that int num1 equals to, it could be as simple as calling another method. So let's say we are just calling multiply. We can also do that. Multiply 2 and 3. Similarly, int num2 equals to 4 and 4. So we are saying that to get number 1, please call the multiply method with these two arguments, and whatever the return value is, that is our number 1. And similarly, we are calling the multiply again with two input arguments 4 and 4, and we are saying the multiplication of these two numbers is basically our number 2. And then we are passing this num1 and num2 to another method. And let me just comment these couts and this method call as well. In fact, let me comment all method calls and let's run the example. Okay, so I see I forgot to comment m1 and m2. That's why I see with these output, these messages on the console. But anyway, so when JVM executed this line, it called the multiply method. That's why we see calling multiply. And again for number 2, it called the multiply method. And we again see the same output calling multiply. Then it called print sum method. So we see calling print sum on the console and then the sum of the numbers that we passed. In this case, it was 6 and 16. So we see the output 22 on the console. So this is just another way of doing the same thing. Now we don't have to really, in this case, we don't have to really call the multiply method twice before actually calling the print sum method. We can write it in a different way. So we can write something like this because it is expecting an integer argument. So we can call any method that returns an integer. We can simply call multiply method here, and for num2 we can do the same thing. And this time let me just comment these method calls. Earlier the output was 22, so we can comment this one out. Now we are saying that call the printsum method, but JVM will see that okay, we are calling another method here, and again for num2 for second argument I have to call another method. But this is perfectly fine because if we see the signature of the print sum is to have two integer arguments, and in this case multiply returns an integer. So if we run this code, we see the same output. Sorry, let me comment this one too and run it again. So now we see the same output. Before JVM can call print sum to resolve the input argument, it has to call these methods first. So that's why when we call print sum, JVM first called this method, and we see calling multiply. Whatever this method returned, which is basically 6, it was stored in a temp variable or a temp location storage. Then JVM called this method again with input argument 4 and 4, and we see another calling multiply on the console, and the return value of this call, which is 16, was stored somewhere else. Then finally JVM called print sum with 6 and 16 as input arguments, and we see the output 22, some of those numbers on the console. So this is another way of doing the same thing. So we can call one method from another method in this way, or we can also call a method in this way. So that's it on the methods for now. Thank you.